This is a deadly training session. In the hand of the officer is a real grenade. The boy was too scared to receive the grenade, so he did not wait for the officer to speak, then he pulled the lead wire. The magistrate panicked and shouted loudly, startling him, causing the grenade to fall to the ground. The magistrate ran ahead to leave the children standing in place, not knowing what to do. When death was near, a young boy rushed out from behind. He did not hesitate to lie on top of the grenade. He raised his head gravely. His eyes did not panic. Children are scared to death. Why are some people not so afraid of death? Since this was a Nazi school, which trained senior military personnel for the head of the empire, these 10 to 18-year-olds were all future Nazi masters. After they graduate, they will all become leaders of the regions that are referred to as Washington, Moscow, and London. The selection process for students is extremely strict. First of all, they must be of Aryan bloodline with special requirements for eye and hair color, and must also undergo physical and mental tests, as long as they are lacking. Leftovers are immediately disqualified. Fed Brick, 17 years old, is a coal miner, but from today onwards he no longer works in coal mines because in one match he defeated the top student of the whole school. The school officer witnessed this scene, then the officer reached out to Perik to invite him to join the National Academy of Politics. The coal boy felt that his life was finally turning a new page. He quickly took the academy test. Petrick with pure Aryan blood was recommended by the officer, so he passed the test smoothly. He returned home to inform his parents. This should be an opportunity for others to fight for him to not expect his father to object. The Fed couldn't understand it and felt extremely disgruntled. His father raised his hand and gave him a slap because he didn't know that his father was an anti-Nazi, but the Fed did not want to give up this opportunity. In the evening, while everyone was asleep, he left a letter and left quietly. Soon Fed came to the academy to report. Just arrived at the academy, he saw everything new the moment he put on his military uniform. He was extremely excited. He couldn't help but make a Nazi greeting in front of the mirror. He seemed to see his bright future. At the welcome meeting, Fed listened to the headmaster's eloquent speech, how proud he was, and was quickly absorbed by this spirit and gradually brainwashed by Nazi ideology. In the middle of the night, a new student came to the academy. His name was Andrik. He was the son of an official, but Albert was not overbearing like other warm boys, but he also actively helped out to help Rick fold the pillow. Friendship between boys is as simple as that. They shot guns together, learned to fly planes, and peeked at their daughters bathing together. Very quickly they became brothers and sisters, but the education of Nazi is only about winning and losing, not friendship. The academy organizes a boxing competition. This is Fed's chance to prove himself. Halfway through the match, Fed gets beaten up in blood. Only after he understands the opponent's fighting style will he start counterattack. He used boxing techniques to beat the opponent, and cheers rang out in the arena. Fed thought he had won the contest. Who knew that the coach and principal wanted him to beat the opponent completely? Fed hesitated because the opponent had clearly collapsed. Why fight again? At this time, he remembered the words of the coach. Forget about your humanity, only then can you develop your abilities. So he gritted his teeth and punched the opponent unconscious. Personnel. The coach smiled with satisfaction. This is the way of the cold-blooded Nazis' education involuntarily. Everyone clapped to congratulate the Fed. Only Albert remained motionless after the match. After the Fed was immersed in the joy of winning, Albert went to him and asked him if the opponent had collapsed. Why? You still hit, don't you have any compassion? The honest Albert was so disappointed by the Fed's cold-blooded behavior that the two eventually stopped looking at each other. But they don't know how the cruel upbringing of the Nazi has only just begun. A boy named Secret had some unusual problems in his bed, and soon someone tipped him off. Turned out to be bedwetting. The teacher ordered him to piss on his mattress in front of everyone. Secret couldn't do it, so the teacher made everyone do push-ups until Secret could do it. Shame, repentance, and fear wrapped around him. He finally urinated on the mattress, but it didn't stop there. His nightmare had only just begun. And right after that, the gossiper came again to make trouble for him. He made him pay the fee to keep the secret or he would talk to the magistrate. But he didn't want to be punished like last time. What should he do? Today's training is grenade throwing. That's right, it's real grenade throwing. The boy was too scared to receive the grenade, so he did not wait for the officer to speak, then he pulled the lead wire. The magistrate panicked and shouted loudly, startling him, causing the grenade to fall to the ground. The magistrate ran ahead to leave the children standing in place, not knowing what to do. When death was near, a young boy rushed out from behind. He did not hesitate to lie on top of the grenade, and his name is Secret. The next day everyone gathered in the hall to hold Secret's funeral. On the verge of death, Secret did not hesitate to use his body to save everyone. He was awarded a hero medal. Perhaps Secret did not want to be humiliated anymore, so he chose to end his life. Sometimes the dignity of a person is more important than life. The boy who dropped the grenade was kicked out of the school, but the teacher was not punished, as if nothing had happened. Today's training is high jump. The teacher emphasizes the importance of muscles. To show his muscles, the teacher called a Fed brick to punch him in the stomach. He took a deep breath. The Fed punches hard. For the Fed, this punch is on behalf of Secret. Albert felt this punch was brave, so he wanted to invite him to his father's birthday party. The two became friends. During the party, Albert wrote a poem to read to his father, but before he had read it, his father interrupted. He was not interested in Albert's poetry and did not want to listen to it. Albert was very sad. As soon as he learns that Fed Brick is a boxer, he gets excited and takes Fed and Albert down to the basement, where they can punch each other for everyone's amusement. In the cheers, Fed Brick punched and punched Albert. Albert's father ran over to put his hand on the Fed Brick's shoulder. He praised him full of words. In his eyes only the winner, not his son. This caused Albert and Fed Brick to turn away from each other. One evening, Albert's father came to the academy and issued an urgent mission. A group of Soviet POWs had fled nearby. Their mission was to take Soviet prisoners. Each received a gun and several cartridges and set off. Some people are very excited with guns, while most are anxious faces. After searching for a while, they found Soviet prisoners in the forest. In the dark night, they didn't even confirm but pulled the trigger repeatedly. After the shooting was over, they went to check and discovered that these Soviet POWs all had only bare hands and were minors like them. Albert hurriedly shouted, "Quickly get a bandage," and panicked to stop the bleeding for the Soviet boy. The Fed didn't know what to do when watching these children slowly die, because they weren't as cruel as the chief said earlier. At this time, Albert's father came. He immediately shot and killed the wounded Soviet boy, Fed Brick, now completely disappointed in this academy, his family and his country. The other prisoners were also cornered by the Nazis and massacred one by one. Soviet soldiers with bare hands iron socks became an exercise for Nazi recruits. As night fell, the first gunshots that killed people kept ringing in their heads. The next day the magistrates still pretended nothing happened, forcing them to write an essay about winter scenery. Albert wrote down his thoughts and read them in front of everyone. He provoked criticism that his father shouldn't be killing underage prisoners with no iron in hand. The magistrate kicked Albert out, and after his father heard the news, he immediately went to school. He does not allow his son to offend His Majesty and asks Albert to rewrite another essay admitting his mistake, or else he will send him to the front line. But Albert still refused. Fed Brick asked him why he wrote such an essay. Even if Albert didn't win in boxing, after being sent to the front line, Albert would definitely face many dangers. The two struggled and then cried loudly. They did not expect this to be the first time they fought and also the last. Another deadly training session in -30 degrees, the boy stripped off his clothes and jumped into the cold water, then swam forward with the end of the rope. The others watched anxiously, and after a while the boy emerged from another flat hole. This is their training for today. If you complete it, you will get a score of 9. Very soon it's Albert's turn. He saw Fed up and then jumped down, but he swam halfway and then stopped. He looked towards the direction. The lake is so deep that you can't see the bottom. Seeing that Albert never climbed up, the Fed Brick seemed to realize something was wrong. He rushed over to brush off the snow and shouted Albert's name. Albert looked up and slowly let go of his hand. Fed Brick frantically smashed the ice, but the ice was too thick. The two of them pressed their hands together through a layer of ice. This was their last goodbye. Albert shook his head, his face desperate. He used this method to oppose his father. Maybe only death can help him escape from this scary world. Fed Brick lying on the ice full of pain. After returning to the dorm, Fed Brick is extremely painful. He hates his only friend. Why did he leave like that? Albert's parents also received news of their son's death. His mother was in great pain, and his father only frowned, saying he was too weak. Fed Brick wanted to do something for Albert. He used the typewriter to write a funeral notice and put it in the newspaper. But the principal refused, because in the eyes of the Nazis, the person who found his own death was unworthy. even Albert's parents thought so. Albert's death was meaningless, even they thought that Albert's death was indirectly caused by the Fed brick. But the Academy gives Fed brick a chance, as long as he represents the Academy to win the boxing competition to prove his loyalty to Nazi, all mistakes will be ignored. This is the first match that decides the future of the Fed brick. The match started to Fed brick the defense in front of the room. After understanding the opponent's play style, he suddenly attacked. A powerful punch quickly defeated the opponent. He looked around and saw the audience standing up enthusiastically, seeing the principal's proud face and the face of a father who was not sad when he lost his child. Boy. Only missing Albert's face, is this what I want? Fed brick thought to himself. He suddenly dropped his hand. Everyone went from cheering to bewildered. The other party took the opportunity to give him a punch to the ground. Fed brick decides to sacrifice his bright future and joins Albert to fight this cold-blooded world. If the Fed brick fails, he becomes a disgrace to the Academy. He was no longer worth anything. The principal didn't even look up. He made him take off his uniform, including his underwear, because these are all the property of the Academy. He went back to the dormitory naked to change into his usual clothes and left. None of his former friends looked at him and he was pushed out by the magistrate. Fed brick wore shorts and walked under the heavy snow. He looked back at the place he thought would bring him glory. There was no attachment in his eyes. He turned his head away and returned to his house. Compared to Secret, who used his life in exchange for self-respect, and Albert found his own death to fight the world. Fed brick was much luckier. He survived before he lost himself. Meanwhile, others continued to be brainwashed until they became Nazi henchmen. This is the end of this movie called Before the Fall. If you think this movie is good, please click like and comment below to support Foy Andrew. Thank you for watching all of our videos. Bye and see you again.